She was America's sweetheart, the faith-filled beauty who married a pastor. Now she's married to an actor convicted of domestic violence, and her ex-husband is spiraling. What started as a quiet Hollywood love story has exploded into scandal, public tears, and leaked audio that changes everything. Meagan Good and Jonathan Majors are officially husband and wife, but instead of a fairy tale ending, the streets are buzzing with suspicion. Did Jonathan rush to say "I do" to dodge backlash from a viral abuse confession? Is Meagan blinded by love or trapped in a PR disaster? And what about her ex-husband, DeVon Franklin? He's talking heartbreak, regret, and allegedly trying to warn Meagan about the man she just married. Let's get into the timeline, the tea, and the tangled web of love, lies, and reputation on the brink. Hae said she needed time to heal, that she was broken, devastated, and retreating from the spotlight to find herself again. But while the world waited for Meagan Good to grieve in peace, she was busy planning a wedding. In a plot twist no one saw coming, Meagan Good is now Mrs. Jonathan Majors. Yes, that Jonathan Majors, still facing the fallout from assault allegations and a career nearly in flames. The internet is stunned, fans are confused, and critics are asking the one question burning on everyone's tongue. Is this a real love story, or just Hollywood's boldest PR cover-up yet? And just as that news hit, another voice emerged from the man she once called her soulmate. DeVon Franklin, the respected pastor and film executive who married Meagan in a church ceremony 10 years ago, finally broke his silence. His words? "I didn't leave her. I would have waited forever." In one heartbreaking confession, DeVon shattered the public narrative and exposed a wound that may never heal. How did we go from a faith-based fairy tale to a red carpet scandal? And more importantly, what is Meagan really running from? It all started with a slip, one word that cracked the facade wide open. Jonathan Majors was in court, surrounded by flashing cameras and public scrutiny, when he referred to Meagan as his wife. At first, the moment passed without much fanfare, just another chaotic day in a spiraling legal saga. But the internet doesn't miss anything. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Slowed down, replayed, dissected. People zoomed in on his face, his tone, even Meagan's reaction. Was it nerves? A mistake? Or the truth accidentally tumbling out? Fans noticed something strange. Neither of them corrected it. Not on social media, not in interviews, not even in court filings. The silence only made it louder. And then came the receipts. A private ceremony quietly filed under sealed records. A glimpse of matching rings and paparazzi shots. Friends of the couple suddenly going quiet or offering suspiciously vague congratulations. Within days, what seemed like a verbal stumble transformed into confirmation. Jonathan Majors and Meagan Good are not dating. They're married. But the timing? Uncomfortable. Jonathan is still battling assault allegations in court. His reputation has been shredded, his Marvel contract terminated, and public trust fractured. Meagan, once America's sweetheart of faith and femininity, is now standing beside him like a woman with something to prove. So the question isn't just, are they married? It's why now? Was it a strategic distraction from the trial? A PR power move to humanize a man accused of violence? Or was Jonathan so swept up in emotion that he called Meagan his wife before the world even had time to catch up? Because if it was accidental, it might be the most revealing moment of his entire defense. And if it wasn't, then this was a love story drafted by a crisis management team. Either way, this wasn't just a wedding, it was a bombshell. While Meagan is stepping into this whirlwind new chapter with Jonathan Majors, someone else is still quietly nursing the wounds of the last one. Enter DeVon Franklin, Hollywood pastor, producer, and once the picture of black love goals alongside Meagan Good. When their divorce was finalized in 2022, it wasn't just a breakup, it was a cultural tremor. A couple who'd spent a decade preaching patience, purity, and prayer had fallen apart. And for DeVon, the aftermath wasn't clean or easy. In interviews and tearful podcasts, DeVon's voice has cracked as he admitted, "I never saw it coming. I didn't want it. I prayed against it." This wasn't the language of a man ready to move on. It was the heartbreak of someone blindsided by a vow that unraveled. He said, I just didn't think I do would turn into I don't. He spoke about crying through the night, about sitting in silence, trying to understand what went wrong. And more than once, he hinted at a deeper truth, that he was still in love, even after the paperwork was done. He called their time together a divine assignment. He said he still prayed for her. When Meagan began publicly stepping out with Jonathan, smiling, glowing, reclaiming her image, Devon stayed quiet. Dignified, yes, but the silence was loud. It wasn't bitterness. It was grief. Because for him, Meagan wasn't just a co-star in a power couple image. She was the woman he believed God sent him. And now, watching her stand beside a man on trial for assault, Devon is left wrestling with the unthinkable. That the woman he waited for, the woman he married with full faith in forever, is now wearing someone else's ring, and possibly caught in a storm even love can't explain. So when he said he never expected I do to turn into I don't, he wasn't just talking about the end of a marriage. He was mourning the loss of a future he still believed in. Now let's rewind to the moment the public's perception of Jonathan Majors began to shatter. March 2023. That was when news broke that the rising Marvel star had been arrested in New York City for allegedly assaulting his then-girlfriend, Grace Jabari. According to the initial police report, Grace had visible injuries, a cut behind her ear, bruises on her face, and a fractured finger. Jonathan was taken into custody almost immediately, something that sent shockwaves through Hollywood, where he was being primed as the next major box office king. But that was just the beginning, because in the days that followed, the details got darker. Much darker. Soon after the arrest, text messages between Grace and Jonathan were leaked. Instead of clearing his name, they did the opposite. In one of the texts, Grace appeared to apologize to him for being the one who got him in trouble. But her tone? Shaky, manipulated. It read like a woman trying to protect the man who just hurt her. And then came the audio. In a chilling leaked recording, Jonathan is heard admitting that he put hands on her. His voice is low, eerily calm, like someone trying to manage the narrative mid-crisis. I only did it because you wouldn't stop. You know how you get, he says. It wasn't rage, it was rationalized violence. That tape went viral within hours. Suddenly, the internet turned on its former darling. Then came the photos. Grace Jabari's injuries were documented in legal filings and circulated across Twitter and Reddit. Her swollen face, the deep bruising on her arm, scratches along her neck. These weren't just tabloid rumors anymore. They were physical proof. And with those images, the fan base split. Some immediately jumped to Jonathan's defense, claiming the media was tearing down another successful black man on the rise. But others, especially women, felt betrayed. They'd watch him deliver poetic monologues about love and masculinity in interviews. They'd watched him embrace Meagan Good like a reformed king. And now, that same man stood accused of domestic abuse, gaslighting, and manipulation. His PR team tried to spin the story. They released counterstatements. They even leaked surveillance footage of Grace at a nightclub hours after the alleged incident, claiming it disproved her injuries. But the damage had been done. Marvel paused all press involving Majors. Several brands dropped him from campaigns. And insiders whispered that even Disney was re-evaluating Kong the Conqueror as their next major villain. So now, when he calls Meagan Good his wife in public, when they walk hand in hand, all smiles and silk and Hollywood charm, it doesn't feel like a love story. It feels like a strategy. Because for many watching at home, the real question isn't did he do it? It's why is she standing by him if he did? And that takes us straight into Meagan Good's transformation, from Hollywood's sweetheart to ride or die. Whether you see it as loyalty or denial, one thing is clear. She's not the same woman she was during the DeVon Franklin years. And Hollywood has noticed. Now here's where things take a sharp, uncomfortable turn, from romance to reputation management. Because while Jonathan Majors was battling abuse allegations, career collapse, and public outrage, Meagan Good was right there, in the courtroom. Not just in spirit, physically present. Week after week, Meagan showed up beside him, hand in hand, like a Hollywood Bonnie to his legally embattled Clyde. Eyewitnesses at court described her demeanor as calm, almost rehearsed. She didn't flinch when the prosecution described Grace Jabari's injuries. She didn't break when the damning text messages were read aloud. She stood by her man, unmoved, unwavering. Then came the red carpet interviews. Meagan started using her platform to speak his truth. In an interview with Essence, she called him a good man going through a storm. On social media, she posted cryptic quotes about loyalty and choosing love in the face of chaos. It was clear, she wasn't just supporting him, she was shielding him. But that's when her fans turned. People who once praised her as a beacon of strength and independence, especially after her classy exit from DeVon Franklin, started asking, what happened to Meagan Good? Why is she attaching her name, her image, to a scandal? Suddenly, the hashtag Free Meagan started trending. Not in celebration, but in concern. Some called it love. Others called it cover-up. Black Twitter especially was divided. One side warned not to shame a black woman for loving out loud. But the other side? The other side accused her of being complicit in cleaning up Jonathan's mess. And behind the scenes, it gets even messier. Multiple industry insiders, including a former associate of Majors, claim Meagan has stepped in to handle his financial fallout. We're talking legal fees, publicist retainers, crisis managers. Word is she's footing the bill. Not because she has to, but because no one else will. Brands have distanced themselves from Majors. Studios hit pause. And now, he's living on Meagan's dime. It's a shocking reversal of power. Once married to a faith-driven producer and spiritual leader, Meagan is now playing the role of caretaker, protector, and, let's be honest, damage control coordinator for a man the industry no longer trusts. And here's the real kicker. Sources close to Meagan say she believed Jonathan was set up, that Grace Jabari exaggerated the incident, that the media has painted a false narrative, and that Jonathan deserves redemption. But who gets to decide when someone's redeemed? And if this really is love, why does it look like a PR campaign? Because while Jonathan tries to rebuild his career, Meagan's is quietly shrinking. She hasn't led a major film since their relationship began. No new show announcements. No major endorsements. Just courtroom cameos and controversy. So, is Meagan Good a woman in love? Or has she become the face of a redemption arc that never truly began? One thing's for sure. The girl we met in Eve's Bayou, the fierce, fire-eyed woman who survived Hollywood without ever selling her soul, is gone. And what's left is a version of Meagan the public barely recognizes. But the story doesn't stop here, because just when you think it can't get more complicated, DeVon Franklin re-enters the narrative in the most unexpected way, and what he says will leave you speechless. Here's where things get chillingly poetic. Because in the midst of Meagan Good's whirlwind romance-turned-marriage with Jonathan Majors, DeVon Franklin broke his silence. Not with accusations, not with drama, but with something that hit deeper, a cryptic interview where he spoke about loving someone enough to let them walk into their own storm. He never said her name. He didn't have to. The timing was too perfect. The subtext, too loud. Fans immediately dissected the quote like a crime scene. Was DeVon trying to warn Meagan? A final plea from a man who had already watched her walk away, now forced to watch her walk into a fire? In that same interview, DeVon said, sometimes people can't see what you see until it's too late. And if you try to stop them, they'll only resent you. It wasn't bitterness. It was heartbreak, couched in restraint. So now the internet is divided again. Was that a soft, sorrowful attempt to protect the woman he once vowed to love forever? Or was it something uglier, jealousy dressed as concern? Because while Meagan's being dragged for standing by a man with a violent history, DeVon, he's moved on. He's reportedly seeing someone new, a soft-spoken motivational speaker with zero drama, no criminal allegations, and a squeaky clean past. Fans are calling it his peace era, a textbook glow-up. But even in his new love, his eyes still linger in Meagan's direction. So here's the burning question. Did DeVon try to warn Meagan before the ring went on? Or did he already know that the woman he once called his wife wouldn't hear the truth until it echoed from her own regret? Because behind every public scandal is a private heartbreak, and DeVon's heartbreak might have always been the first red flag. And as the public watches this love triangle unfold, messy, raw, and painfully human, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Some warnings don't come with alarms. They come with silence. And just when the public thought it couldn't get any messier, the courtroom doors swung wide open. Because Jonathan Majors stood trial in one of the most high-profile celebrity cases of 2023. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the drama? It spilled straight into headlines. The charges were serious: harassment, assault, and misdemeanor reckless endangerment stemming from a confrontation with his then-girlfriend, Grace Jabari. The prosecution painted a disturbing picture, one not just of physical harm, but of manipulation, control, and psychological warfare. Text messages were presented, audio recordings, witness testimony, and still, Jonathan sat stone-faced, flanked by none other than Meagan Good, his unwavering support system. Then came the verdict. Jonathan Majors was convicted on 2 counts, harassment and reckless assault in the 3rd degree. But he was acquitted on the more severe charges, intentional assault and aggravated harassment. A partial win? Depends who you ask, because just minutes after the verdict, the district attorney released a scathing statement. And it wasn't sugarcoated. They declared that the evidence demonstrated a pattern of coercive behavior, emotional manipulation, and psychological harm. They stood by their case, implying that even if Majors dodged the harshest legal consequences, the moral verdict was already delivered. And while fans waited to see if he'd be handcuffed and taken away, Jonathan Majors walked free. No jail time. Instead, he was sentenced to domestic violence counseling, mandated therapy, and court supervision. A slap on the wrist? Or a chance for real rehabilitation? The internet erupted. Some screamed that the justice system had once again failed a woman of color. Others claimed Jonathan was the real victim, railroaded by cancel culture. But the truth lies somewhere in the courtroom's silence after the gavel fell. Because while the law found Jonathan Majors guilty of some wrongdoing, it also granted him freedom. And as he exited that courthouse, hand in hand with Meagan Good, eyes behind designer sunglasses and a smirk that sent social media into a tailspin, one question lingered like smoke in the air. Did justice actually get served? Or did fame, charm, and strategy win the day? Because in Hollywood, even the truth has a PR team. Once upon a time, Meagan Good was the industry's sweetheart, a faith-forward beauty who carried herself with elegance, poise, and quiet strength. But now, that polished image is cracking and fast. Because ever since she stepped out hand in hand with Jonathan Majors, especially after the guilty verdict, social media has been on fire. And not in a good way. Tweets, think pieces, Instagram reels dissecting her body language, TikToks questioning her silence. Fans are no longer just confused, they're concerned. The tone has shifted from disappointment to full-blown alarm. And the whispers? They're getting louder. It started with the court appearances. Meagan showed up in press-ready outfits, sitting beside Jonathan like a PR dream. But what was meant to showcase loyalty backfired. Many began accusing her of enabling behavior, of participating in his image rehabilitation campaign. And then came the bombshells that shook her fanbase to its core. Multiple sources, some close to the couple, claim that Meagan isn't just supporting Jonathan emotionally. She's supporting him financially. Allegedly, Meagan is footing the bill for their shared lifestyle, from legal fees to PR damage control. But doesn't stop there. Insiders say she's also covering Jonathan's child support payments. That's right, his child, his obligation, her paycheck. And for many, that was the final straw. How do we get here? Fans ask. This is Meagan Good, Hollywood royalty in her own right. A woman who used to walk red carpets with her own name in lights. Now she's reportedly maxing out her finances, patching up the image of a man convicted of abuse, while his own career is on the brink of collapse. Supporters are now pleading with her online, Meagan, this isn't you. You deserve better. Please get out. And yet, she remains silent. She's still posting, still smiling in photos, still standing by his side. But her once pristine image? It's fading fast. She's no longer the independent queen in control of her narrative. Instead, many see her as the tragic heroine, caught in the fallout of someone else's scandal, paying the price for love that may not even be hers to keep. The narrative has shifted from power couple to what is happening to Meagan. Because when your finances, your mental health, and your legacy are all on the line, how long before you stop standing by someone and finally stand up for yourself? And now, we're left with the question that's been haunting fans, insiders, and even some Hollywood executives behind closed doors. Is Meagan Good a woman in love or a woman in trouble? Because from the outside looking in, this isn't just a complicated love story. It's starting to feel like a tragedy in slow motion. One where the lines between loyalty and loss, support and self-sacrifice have become dangerously blurred. What began as a soft rebrand for Jonathan Majors, a slow crawl back into public favor through red carpet moments and curated interviews, has now become a cautionary tale. Not just about fame or scandal, but about how far one woman might go to protect someone who may not deserve it. And at what cost? Let's talk about Jonathan. Will his image ever truly recover? Yes, some of his fans remain loyal. Yes, some industry figures are quietly rooting for his comeback. But the court of public opinion is far less forgiving. The guilty verdict wasn't just a legal blow. It cemented a narrative, one of coercion, control, and carefully masked harm. And in the middle of that storm stands Meagan, a woman whose career was never in question, whose beauty, faith, and talent made her a beacon in an industry that rarely gives black actresses room to breathe, let alone bloom. And now, she's teetering between two futures. One where she's remembered as the woman who stood by her man, and another where she becomes a cautionary footnote. The collateral damage in someone else's fall from grace. And then there's DeVon, the ex-husband, the spiritual guide, the man who once vowed forever, only to watch that promise unravel. But did he really lose her? Or did he dodge a disaster? Some fans think DeVon saw this coming, that his heartbreak wasn't just about the end of a marriage, but the beginning of a transformation he couldn't stop. That maybe, just maybe, his emotional posts and cryptic interviews weren't shots at Meagan, but warnings. Quiet pleas for her to wake up before it's too late. And yet, love is never that simple, is it? We don't know what Meagan sees behind closed doors. Maybe she believes in redemption. Maybe she sees something worth saving. Or maybe, like so many women before her, she's hoping her love can fix what the world has already judged as broken. But the cost is rising. Her reputation, her money, her peace. And so we end where we began. Is this a love story still being written, or a red flag we're all watching in real time? Is Meagan Good walking beside the man she believes in, or slowly disappearing behind him? Is this the price of unconditional love, or the toll of emotional captivity? Because one thing is crystal clear. If Jonathan Majors is trying to rebuild his life, Meagan Good is paying the bill. So ask yourself, when the dust finally settles, will she rise from the ashes or be buried beneath them? Redemption or ruin? Time will tell.